Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I have an article I want to share with you. Athletes that are striving as myself to be fit and healthy from the inside out. Rupa Health is a program I use as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, ordering labs and working on educational programs. They had this great article addressing gut related issues in athletes, functional medicine perspectives on nutrition and performance. So I just want to go over it with you, as well as I have a whole bunch of other articles here putting together on my website, where to CGM and how glucose, sugar, blood sugar levels, and various stressors correlate together. So looking at different stressors as your exercise, stress and emotions, medications, and what we can learn. So I am interviewing someone from NutriSense again next week, and we'll have that up on the YouTube channel coming soon, as well as I found some great articles on NutriSense, or you can look at lumen levels, all sorts of different ways we can track, as well as biosense, looking at tracking our blood sugar, ketones, fat burn to carb burn, all these different devices, as well as correlating with your heart rate variability on your Aura ring. So tracking everything together, but figuring out what to do with that. So I want to go into these articles another day, but looking at NutriSense article I found, what was this called? How to improve insulin sensitivity, looking at fasting insulin levels. They say 2 to 8. We say 2 to 5. So insulin levels and other markers that I look at as FDN practitioner, vitamin D, we want 60 to 80. Your insulin, we want 1 to 5. Your A1C, 4.5 to 5.5%. Your CRP is a male, we want under 0.55. Women CRP levels under 1.5. Homocysteine, we want 6.0 to 7.2. So looking at different markers, I think is super important information to have in your health journey, but looking at what to do with the data, how to correlate it all together is what we do as health investigators, and looking at what is optimal versus what is normal. So looking at ways to improve insulin sensitivity, really good article on this one, identifying best carb for you, looking at gut health, looking at the right type of exercise. So good articles we'll dive into in upcoming videos. How to use Biosense is a previous episode I've done. Lumen is a company I'm working with now on improving your metabolic flexibility. So I'm working on a slide presentation for you on that one. Okay, so the article today, I want to touch on metabolic flexibility, how to improve that. So Lumen has a great article. I'm putting this into slide presentation, the benefits of metabolic flexibility, improved weight loss, which I would say fat loss, improved athletic performance, greater energy, cognitive benefits, chronic disease reduction, and reduce inflammation, sleep, health. So all these benefits. So you can look at this Lumen article. We'll go into that. But today's focus, gut-related issues. I thought this was really great and correlates with what I do to help athletes that are aging to be fit and healthy from the inside out. And that includes reducing external stressors, but identifying by doing functional lab testing, what are your hidden sources of chronic stress? So we have different stressors we don't know about. So a lot of times we feel fine, but you don't know you're feeling fine is just acceptance of your new normal, not feeling optimal. So knowing that maybe you're just kind of settling for how you feel now, not realizing you could be even better. So looking at hidden stressors that impact, hidden stands for hormones, immune function, digestion, detoxification, energy systems, and your neurotransmitters, nervous system. So I just want to go through this article real quick. 30 to 70% of athletes experience some sort of GI stress, GI issue when they're training. And the most important thing is prevent it, understand why. So root cause medicine is what more functional health is about. So a lot of runners, cyclists, triathletes, we have issues with our gut. Gut health is a central component of athletic performance as the gut plays a role in energy metabolism, nutrient absorption, and immune function. Your gut microbiome is and has an important relationship with stress and your hormones. So we really want to do, I think, twice a year, gut stool test. So it's gross because you have to take a sample of your poop. It's not always fun. Sometimes, usually, poop is gross. It stinks. There's stuff in it. So you have to take a little sample of your poop and do that twice a year is great. I use GI Map or Genova Diagnostics or the Gut Zoomer, but functional medicine is where we work on helping you figure out root cause, addressing the root causes. So why do things happen? Looking at more a holistic approach and figuring out how to put the missing pieces of puzzle together. So what is the importance of gut health for an athlete? Gut health. Let's go over this part. Gut health can impact athletic performance in several ways. While gut-related symptoms as bloating or reflux can directly affect how well an athlete performs in a given training session or competition, the health of the gut also impacts things as nutrient absorption, energy production, and metabolism, as well as immune function. So, if you're an athlete, having the ability to produce sustained energy, of course, is ideal. That's for high performer. You need to do well, perform your best, and finish a race. If you're trying to compete, as I used to be first in my age group, you need to have everything working together at optimal levels. And the body works together like as an orchestra. So if one player of the orchestra is out of tune, not working at optimal levels, dysfunctional, the rest of the body is going to be dysfunctional, as I had happened to me 10 years ago, which is why what I do now to help you avoid, because it's controllable if you know to identify the root cause, the red flags that come along the way before you have dysfunction that is going to set you back, as I had happened to me. So if you are working on improved performance in life and sports, we want to make sure we can break down food properly, absorb nutrients from that food that we are eating, and turn it into usable energy. We need to have the right processes that require the gut to be functioning at optimal level. The gut microbiome modulates inflammation and the immune system. So we've learned immune system is 70-80% your gut. So when I see a marker on a gut test as a secretary IgA, we know if it's lower or higher that there's some red flags going on there. If we have other markers as calprotectin that's elevated, we know something's going on with inflammatory bowel disease. And so we have these different clues and we correlate that together with your lab tests, even a thyroid panel, lipid panel, liver panel. Looking at your blood chemistry can address the body as a whole, put all the pieces of the puzzle from different lab tests together. So we have, looking at example here, let me zoom in. A poor microbiome health may be linked to breakdown of muscle skeletal integrity. So the importance of gut health in athletes, let's zoom into this picture. Now we have pain, acute response, we have local tissue inflammation, and we have mechanical overuse that can also cause, well, that goes local tissue inflammation to pain. So we have this connection here. Overuse injuries, overuse training. We have dysbiosis, leaky gut. Leaky gut, we have endotoxemia. So LPS levels are higher. We want to ideally have a healthy gut microbiome. And we don't want to obviously have intestinal permeability gut. So we don't want to have leaky gut. We want to have our gut wall lining sealed, all our guards in place. So we have muscles, tendons, joints, and bones that we need to be working right at optimal levels. But if we have this problem of excess exercise and poor gut health and having this connection of muscle skeletal structures, injuries, local tissue inflammation becomes chronic. We get this whole circle here, low grade inflammation. So you can see this big list. Now you have to remember, a lot of doctors, when you do your annual labs with your doctor under insurance, I know I have this problem every year, they're not testing C-reactive protein, my CRP levels. They're not testing, usually my vitamin D or my GGT markers, AST, ALT they do, but looking at all this together, looking at your free T4 and T3. Do you have conversion of T4 inactive thyroid to active T3? Do you have autoimmune antibodies going on? So we have to look at all this stuff. And if you go to Ulta Labs or Rupa Health, you can order these blood chemistry tests for very inexpensive, $100, $200. You can get all this, or even get insulin for $15 CRP. You can individually order these individually. So going back to this article, gut-related symptoms increase with difficulty and intensity of training sessions, and fluid restriction, or known as dehydration, can worsen these symptoms. Endurance athletes have more of an increased incidence of GI disorders, suggested that increased intestinal permeability, otherwise known as leaky gut, may be associated with higher rate of sport injuries. It has been found that greater than 60 minutes of vigorous intensity endurance training, that's 70% of your max capacity, say zone 2, zone 3, can lead to changes in body characteristics of leaky gut syndrome. So again, there's a reason to continue the last few months to focus on gut health, heart rate variability, leaky gut, chronic inflammation. I've had amazing guests on the show this year, Dr. Tom O'Brien, Dr. William Davis, Dr. Vincent Pedre, and I have another doctor coming on the show next month to talk about heart rate variability and gut health. So if you're wearing an Oura ring or a Whoop band, pay attention to changes that might correlate to gut health, gut stress. Heart rate variability changes, heart rate changes, or sleep quality changes. After training, if you're doing a lot of training as the season begins here, it's May when I record this, June, July, August, people are training a lot. So if you have signs and symptoms of leaky gut, how do you know? Chronic inflammation in your body or inflammation in your joints. You might have more slow recovery, more pain. Symptoms may appear as bloating, diarrhea, reflux, or heartburn, abdominal pain, but I don't think that happens as much to people as myself. It's more skin issues, brain fog, memory issues, slow recovery, as I said. So it's more looking at the underlying physiological changes that can impact your energy levels, recovery ability, and immune response to common infections as well. So what are common gut-related issues in athletes? So this article talks about the most prevalent gut-related issues is irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, leaky gut syndrome, and exercise-induced, get that, there's exercise-induced GI distress. Up to 70% of athletes experience some sort of GI issue during training cycles, with the most common affected running, cycling, weightlifting. Endurance athletes may experience more IBS. So something you might not talk about publicly on your social media posts that, yeah, I just worked out and I had diarrhea, or just was working out and just threw up the whole time on the bike ride. We don't often share that. So if you relate, you might want to confide in some other athletes, see if that's normal, and not to accept that as your new normal. That if you have more IBS or if you have other symptoms, again, IBS is the hallmark symptom of gut issues, but there's, as I said, there's lots of other symptoms related to leaky gut and irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel syndrome. So you might want to look at your training program and intensity, looking at higher intensity sessions, they says, do increase likelihood of experiencing symptoms, but long distance, heat, training in the heat, all that can affect your gut. So supporting athletes with IBS may be an important focus in functional medicine. As a practitioner, studies observe that runners with IBS need a better understanding and guidance around the nutrition. So if that's you, let me know. Many will avoid self-identified trigger foods before a race, but still choose historically aggravating foods concerning IBS, impacting their performance ability. So if that's you, let me know. Again, I found that the upper threshold for training, such as vigorous training sessions, equal to an hour or more, 70% of the max exercise capacity can increase intestinal permeability, leading to leaky gut syndrome over time. This effect on the gut is enhanced by higher altitudes, hot environments, and when athletes are dehydrated, making awareness of race environments, fueling hydration strategies more important, supporting gut health. It has been discussed that exercising in the heat, exercise-induced heat in the body, as well as hypoxia, can accompany prolonged, vigorous training sessions are the drivers of leaky gut. So shorter, moderate intensity training sessions may help preserve the integrity of the gut mucosa, as well as improve intestinal motility and increase beneficial short-chain fatty acids, which I did a little webinar on video on my YouTube channel. Increased beneficial levels of short-chain fatty acids. They produce bacteria. They're producing bacteria in the gut. So exercise remains an important component of any gut healing plan. But you'll hear exercise's benefits, not too much, the Goldilocks effect, not too little. You're not sedentary, but you're not overtraining. What is the right amount of exercise that is beneficial for your gut, for your microbiome? So you have the good bacteria that are going to produce the short chain fatty acids that are going to help our mucosal lining. All right. So also says strenuous training without adequate recovery, as well as endurance sports, can lead to something called exercise-induced GI distress. Into 70% of athletes, this can manifest GI symptoms, including heartburn, burping, high belly bloating, reflux, lower GI symptoms as gas, abdominal pain, diarrhea. If severe enough, athletes may be unable to compete or complete or quit due to interference of their symptoms. Changes in the enteric nervous system may be an underlying cause, as exercise induces the sympathetic nervous system. So heart rate variability, remember, we're testing the sympathetic nervous system versus your parasympathetic nervous system. So if you can really dive into what your true heart rate variability is with wearing a chest strap, use Sweetbeat Life, and you can use that app and you'll figure out the ratio of your low frequency, which is your sympathetic fight or flight, versus your high frequency, which is your parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. So we want to keep that in balance. But if we are overtraining and overdoing everything in life, as I used to, living life as a race itself, which is my book, Life is Not a Race, It's a Journey, that we can become sympathetic dominant. So heart rate variability testing is something I did starting back in 2013 when I found I had this metabolic chaos, adrenal exhaustion chaos in my body. So really looking at, am I stuck in sympathetic dominant nervous system state that I'm having everything being overworked and having that connection to that brain connection. So what can you do? Functional medicine testing, as I said, looking at the GI map, looking at the microbiome, a health-associated microbiome diversity is key. Higher abundance of health-promoting bacteria with a healthy barrier function and a functional metabolic capacity can be evaluated during these different tests. So we can do a gut biome test, I said, as Genova Diagnostics or GI Map or the Gut Zoomer. There's also food sensitivity tests that we can order. Food sensitivities are not what you need to avoid forever, but it's a result. So really key point here, while food sensitivities are not in and of themselves the root cause for poor gut health, they're continuing to consume those foods that aggravate the gut and result in an immune response and inflammation after eating them can cause a prolonged stress. So additional stress can prolong an athlete's path to recover an optimal gut health. So identifying which foods that could be probably healthy for you normally, but if they are tagged by the immune system as an enemy, as avocado or almonds or coconut milk, it could be anything you eat all the time. But if it leaked through the gut and the immune system found it and tagged it, you have to remove it and heal your gut, remove it for 90 days or so, reintroduce it and have it maybe once a month or once a week. So those foods are putting gasoline on the fire. So you can't put out the fire till you get rid of all the different root causes, triggers for that fire. So foods may be the culprit leading to symptoms while training, especially if those offending foods are consumed immediately pre and post workout or during the workout itself. So read the ingredients. So doing a food sensitivity test is pretty amazing. And when I'm working with my clients, we're trying to figure out, okay, what can I eat before, during, and after a workout? Because we can't do fasted workout all the time because that's another stressor if we're not eating enough. And if we're missing the nutrient density, we're getting low energy availability and really getting malnourished. So we want to look at what are some options? What are foods that I can eat that are not going to be causing more problems in my gut? So we want to look at nutritional strategies for optimal gut health. And that's going to vary for everyone. A diet, as this says, includes fruit, fermented foods as a Mediterranean diet, and fiber, but not everyone can do fiber. If you have gut issues, IBS, we're not going to give you fiber, right? So we need to look at what foods are reactive. Do you need to be in the low FODMAP diet for a while we heal your gut? Do we need to reduce some of the gasoline, some of those triggers, so we can heal your gut and repair that gut wall lining? So we need to adjust, often getting more protein. Carbohydrate intake might be higher around those anaerobic workouts or more longer duration. That, remember, if we look at my metabolic testing, we are burning some carbohydrates. If I find some of the tests when we're doing an exercise test, this is an example I'm looking for, but we want to look at what fuel source we're burning at what intensity and looking at how you need to consume fat, or not how, but when to consume some fat, some protein, some carbohydrate. Higher carbohydrate is going to vary per person, but not eating the excessive amounts. And Dr. Dan Plews, I did a video on that the other day, not more than 20 grams of carbohydrates at once, about every 20 minutes. You can divide it up, 60 grams per hour max. So really playing with that. If you are doing a higher intensity workout, if you're doing zone 1, zone 2, you might be fine just having a little bit of carbs with some fat and protein that's easy to digest. So it's going to vary, but there's also an article that ketogenic Mediterranean approaches of healthy fats, fiber, if that works for you, quality protein fermented foods have been found to improve exercise performance, promote gut microbiome, because you're increasing that butyrate producing bacteria, short chain fatty acids, and other beneficial strains of bacteria's Akkermansia that helps your mucosal barrier. Such an approach may be a good strategic plan for nutrition to help athletes improve their fat oxidation rate, metabolic flexibility and training. And that's what we test when I do my Pinoy metabolic testing at rest and during exercise, right? And then I'm going to do a follow-up podcast on lumen and how using lumen day to day in between when you meet me and do a test ideally is how that can help me measure my pre-workout nutrition and type of workout I'm doing with the lumen test. So you're doing a breath work. So we'll go into this in a upcoming video as well. So looking at how to experiment, as everyone's different, looking at food sensitivities, look at your gut health, look at what type of gut stress you have going on. If you need to avoid fiber, low FODMAPs, it's going to be different for everyone. So athletes avoiding dietary fat and fiber immediately before or after workouts can help gastric distress. Maybe others it doesn't. So we want to look at easy to digest carbohydrates, proteins, identify and limit inflammatory foods, identify what those are, functional lab testing to reduce overall inflammation in the gut and minimize symptoms associated with consumption of those foods, and really looking at how do you feel when you eat this food? How is your exercise performance? How is your sleep? Looking at all these different sources of stress in your life and then working on these hidden internal stressors, right? So Nutritional gut training is another strategy employed by athletes to help train your gastric emptying and adaptations to meals, to optimize meal timing and training events. So you can learn about that. Role of hydration, a little bit more about hydration on this article. I'll put the link in the show notes. So dehydration can contribute to the problem of athletes feeling like fluids they can't drink, accumulation of fluids sit in their stomach during higher intensities, working out hot environments. So gut health is important for athletes to be able to properly absorb fluids, sodium, electrolytes, carbohydrates that may be in that mixture. So, looking at S fuels, looking at adding, I do element T or using real light and looking at when to add a little more electrolytes to your fuel. If you're using S fuels or UCAN or other products, but the right ratio. You want someone that's going to identify it that the right amount of electrolytes is important. So lots of information there. Looking at lab testing is what I do, health investigation. So key takeaways summarize here. A functional medicine approach to optimizing gut health in athletes can help ensure athletes not only meet their nutrient requirements, also address underlying causes of GI discomfort they may be experiencing that negatively impact athletic performance. Considering digestive capacity, your microbiome diversity, and getting a personalized program with nutrition and your sleep and your stress, exercise, movement is important as a functional medicine approach. Gut health, functional medicine lab testing, help personalize plans for each athlete. So the ability to break down, absorb, and utilize your nutrition is an understated goal for athletes looking to perform their best, perform at your peak level, as well as working on training for your future self. So health of the gut is responsible for these abilities. So you need to have all this working. So let me know if you have questions. Head to debbiepotts.net and reach out for a free discovery call to learn more on my health coaching programs. See you soon.